Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Witching Hour. This week's episode is called We're Moving. I'll be discussing the theme of imprisonment of the Gothic heroine and the connection this has to the actual physical place where this confinement takes place. We'll also be further touching upon how this imprisonment causes a decrease in power of the heroine over the course of their isolation. In this episode, I'll be analyzing this theme as it is shown in the 2020 movie Rebecca, which is based on the Gothic horror text Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier and the short story The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. In Tanya Modleski's article, The Female Uncanny, Gothic Novels for Women, she states that a stereotypical trope of a Gothic novel includes one in which the heroine comes to a mysterious house, perhaps as a bride, perhaps in another capacity, and either starts to mistrust her husband or else finds herself in love with a mysterious man who appears to be some kind of a criminal. By looking at the estate that both these protagonists move into in the text mentioned before, as a living, breathing aspect of the theme, we see how the house is not just a physical place of entrapment, but also represents the fears and anxieties of the protagonist. First, let's see the similarities between the two protagonists of Rebecca and the Yellow Wallpaper. Both of them have no name related to themselves within the narrative, which to me show the loss of agency. They have both gone through major changes caused by life events. In Rebecca, it's her sudden romance and marriage with Maxim de Winter, and in The Yellow Wallpaper, it's the birth of the protagonist's child and subsequent postpartum depression. As a result, they both have to move. In Rebecca, it's to the estate of Manderley, and in The Yellow Wallpaper, to a sprawling estate in the countryside after being told by her husband to adhere to the rest cure. They are both undermined psychologically and derided by figures in their life who are personally attached to them, while these figures also control their lives. That is, in Rebecca, the housekeeper, Mrs. Danvers, who is in charge of the protagonist's day-to-day life in this new environment and was to help guide her. And in The Yellow Wallpaper, it's the protagonist's husband, John, who is both her physician as well as her partner. This creates a skew in power, which gives the aforementioned characters an overwhelming amount of control over the protagonist's lives. They are both highly isolated within these huge sprawling estates, in a relatively unfamiliar surroundings, an environment chosen and dominated by another. Modleski, page 56. There is not much stimulation within their lives except to explore and focus on the estate, this place that was supposed to bring them happiness and health. In Rebecca, Manderley was a new start for the second Mrs. De Winter's life, with her husband Maxim, whom she loves. At the start, the move to Manderley represented an improvement in her social status and quality of life. However, the more time she spent there, the more she realized the estate was haunted by the ghost of her husband's previous wife, Rebecca. Every place in the home holds memories of Rebecca. She feels constantly watched by Maxim and the servants in the home and feels compared to this perfect paragon of virtue and femininity that is shown to be Rebecca. Manderley therefore becomes a prison for her, not just physically due to the constrained gender roles of the time, but also mentally due to having to fight past memories of Rebecca in her present. In The Yellow Wallpaper, the estate at first represents an improvement in the health of the protagonist, although it is from the view of being prescribed by her physician husband, John. This change in environment is supposed to distract her from whatever is plaguing her by making her partake in just resting, eating, and exercising. She is restricted from doing anything too stimulating, especially socializing, reading, and writing. Rather than placating the protagonist, her restrictions aggravate her more, as without anything to do, her mental state starts to deteriorate. She is being constantly watched by John and Jenny, the housekeeper, which makes her feel constricted and infantilized. The estate starts to reflect this deterioration, which is shown by her fixation upon the horrid yellow wallpaper in her room. Slowly, she starts to see a woman creeping about within the wallpaper, yearning to get out. This moves on to her seeing the creeping woman everywhere within the estate, while in contrast, she is stuck inside her room. Her deteriorating mental state caused by the restrictions is reflected in the state of her room. The crumbling wallpaper, the scratched floor, the battered furniture. The more she fixates on the wallpaper and hides what she is feeling in front of others, the more she spirals downwards. Modleski states, forced confinement functions paradoxically both as a metaphor for the restrictions of the feminine role and as a warning against stepping out of this role. The protagonist's forced confinement as a result of her postpartum depression is a repercussion of her not wholly fulfilling her motherly role and unknowingly stepping outside of the feminine social confinements. The rest cure prescribed to her is supposed to take away all the things that may distract her from this role of being homemaker and push her focus onto it, but rather it has the opposite effect. The fact that the room she is staying in is also a dilapidated nursery also strikes me as showcasing her feelings upon having to concentrate on child rearing rather than what she wants to do, which is reading and writing, and the pressure upon her to live up to certain expectations of being a mother, a housekeeper, and a wife. Throughout the course of their confinements, both the protagonists start to lose power and control over their lives as they become more increasingly controlled by those around them. The estates which at first were to lead to their betterment and a sense of freedom in their lives become agents of chaos, which wreak more havoc on them instead. The women become haunted by the ghosts of their past, present within those estates, even if the others around them are not affected by the homes in the very same way. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Witching Hour. Good night.